We've started the recording. Ali, you want to take over?
Yeah. Thank you, everybody, for joining. We have an awesome session today on leadership and entrepreneurship. Before we get kicked off, I want to hand it over to Chairman Aftab for a few words. So, Chairman Aftab, you want to take it away?
Thank you, Ali. Good morning and Yalmdad, everyone. My name is Aftab Pir Mohammed, and I am the chairman for the Aga Khan Economic Planning Board for the Southwestern United States. On behalf of the Aga Khan Economic Planning Board for the USA and the Aga Khan Economic Planning Board for the Southwestern United States, I would like to take this opportunity to welcome each and every one of you to today's webinar on leadership and entrepreneurship. This program is brought to you by Smiley Professional Network, IPN, a vertical within the Aga Khan Economic Planning Board. IPN is focused on connecting new and experienced professionals with other professionals within our community to assist with career and professional development, providing resources for skills development, and sharing thought leadership like this session today within the Jamaat. Furthermore, IPN offers a number of programs and services to our community that will allow us to build on top of what we learn here today, such as job placement support services, resume review, interview prep, connecting with other Smiley in the industry, as well as entrepreneurship coaching and a Slack community of professionals and entrepreneurs. Reach out to IPN at connect@ipnonline.net. I would also like to take this opportunity to welcome our wonderful panelists for today's session. Both Fareed and Afshi have flourished in their businesses in unimaginable ways. I am grateful to both of you for accepting to be here today and sharing your knowledge and experience with our audience. Today, I am a student and I'm ready to learn. I look forward to hearing from both of you speak about your challenges and how you were able to overcome them. In the end, I would like to leave you with a quote by Richard Branson. You don't learn to walk by following rules. You learn by doing and falling over. With that, I would like to thank you all for being here today. I hope you find this program educational, informative, and valuable. I hope you all reach out to IPN at connect@ipn.net and give us the opportunity to serve you. Thank you, and Yalmdad.
Thank you, Chairman Aftab. Really wise words there. What I want to do next is kind of give you guys a background to what we're going to discuss today and kind of the program structure, so to speak, right? So what we're going to do is going to do some panel introductions so you get to know Afshi and Fareed a little bit better. I've got a chance to know them over the past couple of days, and they're amazing people. Really funny and with very diverse backgrounds. And then we'll go into more of the meat of the conversations around what their career was, how they started off, their growth phase, and kind of what they're focused on now, right? And then towards the end, we'll do an open Q&A session so the audience can ask questions. So if you have a question that's burning right now, or if you come up with something later, use that chat function in Zoom and just throw that question in there and we'll answer it in the order it's received. Cool? So let's jump right into it. Leadership and entrepreneurship, right? Both of those skills are very mutually inclusive, meaning you can't have one without the other. Entrepreneurs operating enterprises function as leaders of their business and need specific leadership skills to launch, grow, and sustain a successful venture. So in today's session, we'll dive into the careers of Fareed and Afshi and learn how they leverage their leadership skills to become successful entrepreneurs and how they're continuing to grow and evolve in their careers. Cool. So with that said, I want to just do a quick introduction on Fareed. Fareed, I want to kick it over to you. This is going to be the easiest question you'll get tonight. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh, okay. Can you guys hear me well? It's good. Hi, Yalmdad, everyone, and good morning. I'm Fareed Virani. I guess I didn't know you were going to put this on the screen, but anyhow, I started Prime Communications, a wireless retail company, back in 1999. And since then, we have grown this business with a team of really hardworking, dedicated folks, and have grown the business to more than 2,000 locations across North America. And that's what I do professionally, and on a personal level. Both my wife, Asha, and I support education for kids and healthcare, and I'm also involved with Teach for America. So that's a little blurb about me.
I'll go next. Hi, my name's Afshi, and you already have an intro on there on the screen, so I think it speaks for itself. I'm in the family business and went to school here, did my undergraduate and my master's, and I'm involved in the family business. It's expanded since I joined. Currently involved as well in Jamaati service as well as external community boards. So that's what I do.
I will say those are very, very humble responses. These panelists, Farid and Afshi, are just phenomenal individuals. In the short time I've got to know them, and they're a lot more than what you read on here as paper. So Farid, especially you're being involved in outside of Jamaati institutions, outside of work, and giving back to the communities, and Texas Children's Hospital, the Paris Foundation, all those things are just so admirable. So thank you for joining again. And Afshi, sorry, go ahead, Farid.
Thank you, Asad.
And Afshi, you're no bar less than that. At the time I've got to know you, texting with you, talking with you, and your background and your just drive and motivation has really, really hit me as well. So more to learn on you guys, more to come up. So with that said, we'll go into the panel discussion. And the way I've structured it is, we're going to start off with your earlier career, right? So you're aspiring entrepreneurs getting into the business. At this state, you both took very different approaches to your careers, right? So Afshi, you came into the family business, right? And Farid, you started your own venture from one store and grew it exponentially from there. Both have their set of rewards and challenges in both tracks, and likely helped you guys build a foundation of your leadership and entrepreneurship skills. So I'm going to ask some questions and hone in on some of those aspects of your career, okay? So Afshi, I want to start with you. Question I have for you is, what challenges did you face when you came into the family business? Broad question, I know, so go ahead.
Sure. I think my biggest challenge was being in the family business and being out of school. I was 20 years old when I graduated, so just being out of school was a challenge in itself. And then being in the family business was totally different as well. Our family business, what I entered into at that time was oil and gas. So a very male-dominated environment, which has obviously changed since then in the last 20-some years. So what vendor meetings I go to would be all Caucasian male. Our customers were South Asian male, was selling gas and diesel to retail stations. So in many ways, I was a little bit out of my depth and element. It felt like I was being pushed into a pool and told to swim. Luckily, I was on the shallow end. But I think one of the things I did at that time, and mainly because when I entered the family business, my dad ended up leaving the country for a year. So here's this nascent business that I fell into. But there was really no sort of, support or mentorship. But the good thing was, I had the opportunity to work with my dad the summer before I decided I was going to finish up school, which I finished up in 3 years. So I have a twin brother who also finished up at the same time, and just family circumstances dictated that we just left school a little bit earlier than normal. So my dad and my brother went to Pakistan. I was in this nascent business. I had the opportunity to have at least work with them for the summer before, so I kind of knew a little bit of the business. But really a lot of it was emulating people who, as I would meet them, who were in the same spaces, like in the same business, that I would be like, oh, like they seem like they're successful. So a lot of it was just emulation, finding people like a Farid Varani, who I would be like, oh, he knows what he's doing. Let me see what. It was a lot of observation, and I was always very curious. So that kind of helped a lot in terms of, any ideas or, I wanted to bring to the business. It was really, there was no one really to ask. So every idea I brought in was a new idea, because at that time it was just myself and one other person on the staff. So it was a lot of talking and communication and learning really from him, and being able to put those things into practice.
Amazing. So you really had, all the autonomy to come in and do what you needed to do, from my understanding, right?
Yeah, I was very blessed, because the fact that I had the opportunity to do that, and the fact that my dad trusted me, he probably thought I couldn't do worse than what he already had done. So maybe that was a function of it. But, the big thing for me was that I was allowed to make my mistakes, and I learned from them, and I fell down, got up, fell down, got up, and just kept going.
Amazing, amazing. Farid, next question for you is, what inspired you to develop your idea, right? Can you tell us about any research or business planning that you did, keeping in mind that, back in 1999, this was 8 years before the first iPhone ever came out. So cell phone business was in its kind of infancy and kind of early stages. So How did you get into that?
So cell phone business, you're right. It was very young. I still remember they were all analogs, and the digital phones weren't even out. So for those of you who are old enough to remember, we used to have phones that were like really big, and they were like candy bar shape, but you had to pull the antenna out and make the phone calls. So Prime technically is my third gig. So as part of my second gig, when I was in a retail jewelry business, I kind of fell into this new idea of selling phones in malls. I mean, I just kind of purely by some good luck or a little bit of pixie dust, I ended up learning about that industry. And I said, this is interesting. You know, I can do that. And that's kind of how I came back and took a chance and started this new venture with with literally no experience in that business, but I knew the mall business. I knew the retail business. So that gave me confidence to kind of say, you know what, let's try it out. Let's see how it goes. And here we are.
Great story. That's a true story of an entrepreneur right there.
Yeah, dumb luck. Yeah, dumb luck. That's what I call it. Yeah.
When you had the idea, okay, I'm gonna go all in on this.
Yeah.
Right. I know the business. I know how to run it. I can make a career out of this, possibly a career. What research did you do in terms of like business planning and things like that kind of really solidified your idea of like, you know what, this is a viable business route for me to take?
Well, like I said, I had seen a business out in California that was doing this. So for me, I literally, all I had to do was just not reinvent the wheel, just see what somebody was doing it, how it was done, and replicate that. And the idea was not only to replicate it and then try to make it more efficient and develop, build on what I had already done, which was multiple locations in jewelry business. And I was fortunate enough to kind of build on that. So for the longest time, I had in one mall or one shopping center, I had a jewelry business as well as the phone store. So that's kind of how it started. And for me, it was like tiptoeing into it to see if it worked. And it did. So then slowly I phased out of jewelry business, and we were able to ramp what we call our wireless business. Yeah, very different. It was very different at that time.
Yeah. So really diversifying your portfolio, testing things out to see if it would work. And then if it took off, you go all in on that, right? Basically.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, I had the luxury to do that.
Gotcha. Very good. Fareed, I want to stick with you for a second here.
Sure.
The business idea came to fruition. You tested it out. This is viable. A lot of us in this situation always think, should I go solo into this, or do I need a business partner? So in your case, did you have a business partner, and what did you look for in selecting a business partner?
So, well, I'll answer it this way. So when I started, I didn't have any partners per se. Anyhow, I just literally, because if you think about it, at that point, I was running a sizable jewelry business. And in that business, I had multiple folks that I worked with. And then when I started this business from the day one, from store number one, I didn't have any partners because there was really no need for it at that point because I already knew the business. So we just started. Plus, it was just an idea. We didn't know where it was going to go. Mm-hmm. So I started it. And then after starting the business and having some good success, I was able to invite folks to come join the business. So I had folks from day one that were key part of the business. Some of those guys like Naushad, who's part of Prime family for a long time. He was employee, like literally team member number one. and we started with him. And then we later on, Akbar, who's my partner, he came. I invited him to come and join the business. He came, and then we kind of build capacity, build business. So what I'm saying is that I started early on, and then I quickly was able to bring people in who were very capable, hardworking, and dedicated. So we were able to build a good team early on.
Did you target those individuals based off their skill sets or personalities or things that you wanted in a partner?
Good question. I don't think I was savvy enough to do that. I was just lucky enough to know good people. So yeah, I mean, I don't think any of these folks, they were all young. I was myself young, so they were way young. They were like in their, I'm going to assume in their 20s. So it's not like they had a lot of experience in retail, in malls, and selling phones. But I always have believed in my mind this mantra that I learned: first who, then what. It has served me well over the years for the most part. It's what I call first who, then what. So if I like someone, if we believe someone is hardworking, dedicated, smart person, then they can pretty much do anything within reason. And that's kind of how I have operated. So in my experience, when you know somebody or know of somebody that is hardworking, dedicated individual, then you take a chance. And that's kind of how it started.
Gotcha. Very cool. Afshi, haven't forgotten about you yet. So you're up next. You had mentioned, when you're coming into the family business, making some of those mistakes that you made, falling down, getting back up, right? So can you talk about some mistakes that you made early on that you look back at now and say, you know what? Wow, at that time, that was not a fun experience, but looking back at it now, I learned so much from that, and I'm glad that happened.
So, I was talking this morning with my dad at breakfast, and he was asking me, what am I going to be talking about? And I was like, I don't know, whatever they ask me, So he actually touched up upon this topic of making mistakes. And he was like, one of the, and I will say I am in the same boat as him, where I've had the opportunity to make a lot of mistakes. So I can't even pinpoint to even one mistake that I can say has sort of been life-changing for me, because I made so many, and mainly because I didn't have that mentorship initially at the start of my professional career. And so he was telling me that how he made some mistakes and then he goes on to tell me there were some big mistakes, some costly mistakes. And I told him, well, you were in a position to make those mistakes because you had that support, because we've always been in this family business. So it's always been my dad and his brother. And so I was like, you were in a position where you felt comfortable making those mistakes because you knew that you could come back up because you had that family support. So even for myself, even the mistakes I've made, I mean, I'll tell you, it's because I'm in a family business now with my twin brother and my older sister and our spouses, that I know that I've got this support system around me, and that's not to say that everyone may have that, but I would completely encourage people, make your mistakes, small or big. Don't be afraid to make them, because that's what makes me the person I am today. That's what has made me, as resilient as I may be, to get back, up off my feet, fall again, come back up. But I mean, I think mistakes is something where every mistake you make, there's a learning in it. And that's what I would, put out.
Excellent answer. Next question I have, staying with you, Afshi.
Mm-hmm.
Who was your role model and or leadership mentor, and how did you find them, right? Because along the way, when you're young in your career, again, going back to the mistakes, you may go to your family, or for even your case, to some external mentor. You may seek out advice, mentorship in those areas. So how did you guys both, sticking with you, Afshi, first, how did you guys find your role model and or leadership mentor? Afshi, for you specifically, outside your family.
Oh, gosh, I will tell you, because I have been in the family environment, that those mentors come from there. But I will tell you, my other mentors that I work with have come from my Jamaati service. And I will go back and reiterate what Fareed just said earlier, is when you find people that you find to be hardworking and honest and upfront, I've always found those people to who I've looked to for advice, because I feel like if I've seen them do that in Jamati's service, then I'm also going to find them, and a lot of the same people now I work with, like, in different businesses that we have, that we're invested in or as business partners. So it's been multiple mentors. If it hasn't come from my family, like those mentors have come, to me through my Jamati service.
Yeah. So basically your extended network through Jamati services, you found, some assimilation of like-mindedness that can really help you get to the next level.
Yeah. And I would also add to the fact that when I wasn't looking for mentors. I think it was a very organic process for me that I found them along the way. And I was very fortunate that I was able to find these individuals. But I will say that a lot of times I feel that when people, start a business or start an idea, that they fail to sort of seek out, people in that space and get the right advice. And I think it stems from the fact of, oh my gosh, I'm going to share my idea, or this new business I'm about to get in, and what if they cannibalize my idea or take it over? I'm a big believer in, you have to trust the mentors that you're going to talk to. And sometimes if that does happen, well, there's a learning in that as well. And I've always learned from from my dad and his brother, that what's mine is mine and it's going to be mine. My dad's older brother, he has 8 sisters, and he helped all of his sisters, in their families, help them get into business, sometimes even in competing businesses with his own business. And that was always the mantra, was, that's fine. I mean, he never saw it as competition. To him, it was always complementary to what he was doing, So that's what I've sort of learned is, look for mentors who you can trust. And sometimes you may find they may not be the right mentors. That's okay. You fall down, get back right up, and keep going.
Very good. Fareed, over to you.
Thanks. One thing I forgot to mention when you asked me who was with me when I started, there was another gentleman by the name of Khalil Jinnah. He's been KJ. We used to call him KJ. He was very instrumental in the early days. So I just wanted to make sure I mentioned that. So your question about role models and mentors and all of that. So my journey obviously started as a first generation immigrant, right? So I came when I was 19 years old. So my challenges and struggles were very, very different than most of the folks on the line, because for younger people today, things are different. So for us, our networks were Jamaat Khana based, community based. They were small, they were local. And most of them, if not all of it, were within the community. So yes, I had some really good people from whom I learned the business, or businesses, I should say. And that's kind of how my journey began. See, and later on, when I went to school, when I went to college, I did it as a commuter, right? So I would basically go to school, and then I would go to work, and I would barely get home and tired to go to sleep. So very different experience, because you're trying to survive, learn, adapt, and understand the culture, the system. It's just a very different journey than somebody who comes in, as either born here or comes in as a young child. Big difference. So our network. So what I want you to know, that my network started small, local, and mostly within the community, and then over time they now have grown to what I call in both ways. So I still have community connections, role models, and folks I respect a lot, and people outside the community. So it's kind of like it's been a journey, right? So since I have evolved, they have evolved, and I think that has helped me a lot. It has helped me grow a lot. So I don't know if I answered your question, but that's my experience.
Gotcha. Makes sense. Just, people around you in your network as well, right? So again, you don't go out looking for mentorship, but it just naturally happens, is what I can kind of extrapolate from the conversation. So it makes total sense. Last question on this, laying the foundation, early career aspects of things. So obviously you guys worked extremely hard in your early days, and you continue to do so, right? But more so in the early phases of like learning the business, the ins and outs because you're wearing multiple hats, you're doing X, Y, Z, everything under the sun, right? The early stages are tough and there's many ups and downs. So how do you keep yourself motivated to keep going, right? So a lot of times what happens is you start with an idea, you start one location or e-commerce, whatever it may be, and you kind of hit a wall. You're not getting enough traffic to your site, you're not getting conversions or whatever it is. And then a lot of people, they get demoralized by that aspect and they kind of give up or throw the towel in, like, this wasn't meant to be or something like that. But little do they know, had they just stuck it out and kind of overcome that hump on the wall or hump on the road, they would have been the greener pastures, right? To really having a trajectory of their growth. So talk about some of those instances in your experiences and kind of how you kept yourself going and motivated. Start with you, Akshi.
Sure. So I'm actually working on something right now where I've hit a wall presently. I've been trying it out for the last 3 to 6 months, and I'll tell you, but I'm not ready to give up, okay? Because maybe that's also my personality and for me, what I do is I keep looking for people in that space and I tell them like where I'm stuck. I tell them the mistakes I've made. I'm not shy to share any of the mistakes I've made, by the way, because the more I share about what I've already done, I feel like the better quality advice I can get from that person in that space. So for me, it's constantly looking and talking to people in that space, like where I think that they can help me. So it's more that transparency, the openness, and I don't know. I like a challenge. I just feel like and I'm going to be at it until I feel like, okay, this is it. Now I'm spinning my wheels. Because I see other people in that space and they're doing good and they're doing great, but there's obviously a barrier to entry, like getting into a new space, and that's just experience. So I don't have that experience of certain products, but then I'm just going to go out there and go buy that experience, and hire someone as a consultant. If I think I'm just at that place where I do need to spend that money. But a lot of the new things that I end up doing is mainly very low investment because I'm just super curious. And those end up turning into ideas and into businesses, but they start out really small because I'm a lot more conservative about just throwing the money out there. I want to see if I can do it myself. And when I feel like I can't, that's when I'm going to go buy that experience.
Gotcha. So basically, don't come out trying to hit a home run right out of the gate. Learn methodically, talk to people, get experience, get expertise, and then reinvent your business as needed, right? Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely, yeah.
Got it. Freed, over to you.
So the question, I want to make sure the question is what kept us motivated to keep doing, right? I think mine, looking back at it, it's an interesting question. I would say it's just being an immigrant. It's just a mindset. This is what you do. You come in, you have literally absolutely nothing, and you just keep at it. And it defines who you are. I don't think I wake up in the morning needing motivation. It's just how over time, speaking for myself, I have developed into the person that is curious, that is looking and learning about things. And it's just how I think I'm going to speak for myself. This is how I've evolved. So motivation is not something I needed. Challenges keep coming. That doesn't change. And just, I always believe how you respond to a challenge, that defines you more than the challenge itself. That is kind of, not to sound wishy-washy, but that's kind of how I think about things. And that's been my attitude towards adversity and challenges.
So basically, your back's against the wall, failure's not an option, you have to crawl your way out. That's the immigrant / entrepreneur mentality.
Yeah, most people who came to America like I did back when, most of them can relate to this. And I not to bore on this, keep repeating this topic, but that really defines your character. Especially those like me, those of us who came at a young age.
Couldn't agree more. And this is why I love having the different aspects from Afshi and Farid yourselves, and different backgrounds and different upbringings, and the journey you guys took, right? And that was a perfect example of that. So, all right. So next phase we're going to talk about is kind of your you're mid-career, right? You've established the business, you began to scale your business and get more experience, had leadership, mentorship throughout your career at this point. It helped you get to the next level, right? You got over the hump. And your ability to lead, your confidence, and your business acumen were also starting to grow along the way. So in essence, it was growth for your business and for yourself, right? So I want to focus on some of those aspects of your life and your career. Cool. So Fareed, I'm going to stick with you on this first question. You know, as you're scaling your businesses up from store number 1 to 400, 500, and so on, and ultimately 2,400 now, funding was a big part of growing your business, right? So can you tell us how you secured funding and some of the best practices?
So I'll answer it. So let me kind of maybe respond a little bit differently than just, and then I'll address the funding issue.
Sure.
So I think it's very different when you're managing few stores, dozens, few locations, you know, and by stores, I mean locations, units, whatever you want to call it, a couple of dozen people, whatever you want to call it. It's a different mindset. It's a different skill set. It's what you need at that point. But as you're ramping your business, you have to think about really getting help with people and bringing people on board, and then keeping them focused, keeping them aligned, keeping them what I call motivated, alignment, transparency. All of those things are important. And remember, this is Prime is my third gig, so I had already made a lot of mistakes in the past. And then one thing what I was able to do in Prime, as we had some early success, I was able to bring in good folks that were smarter than me, that worked harder than I did, and brought in some good education, good skills, good training with them. So as I said, and I'll give credit to Akbar when he first joined me, I should say, he brought with him really, American education and training, professional training. That helped. We were able to recruit people that could help us on technology, on processes, on HR, things like that. That helped because it's very different when you're managing the business and have 20 people. But when you grow, this is where you have to kind of change the mindset to go from a entrepreneurial setup, mom and pop setup to a mid-sized company. So that journey, I believe, it's the hardest one. So if I had to say this again, I would say to go from, let's say, running 10, 12 stores and then on to 100 stores, that process or that location to go from a small business to a mid-sized business, I think is where you need the most help. That's where you need the most help with talent, with people, with networks, as you call it, to kind of help you grow. Okay, so that's kind of where I was fortunate enough to bring in good people that really helped us. Now, as far as how to finance things and what have you, so we were fortunate enough that we are in what you would call an asset-light business. That helps, right? So that helped us. Plus, I had developed good banking relationships because I knew what didn't work before. So we had everything from our early days. We had audited financial statements. We had good banking relationships. We knew how to negotiate. We learned how to talk to banks and all of that. So that helped us. And frankly, and then working. And another thing that I learned during the journey is how to work with big companies. And I'll give you an analogy. And what I like for you to do is think about this. Think about a baby sitting on a high chair. A 1-year-old baby sitting on a high chair, and you give that baby a cracker to eat. A cracker. The baby is going to make a mess. It's going to eat cracker, but there will be crumbs all over. So what I did years ago, I learned to focus on the crumbs. Think about what I just said. I focused on the crumbs and tried to pick up small pieces from a big giant company and build our business around it. So that's kind of the mindset that I learned through this journey.
Very interesting. So in essence, relationships is what I got out of that, right? With partners and banking facilities and whatnot. And also finding opportunity where, that saying where one man's trash is another man's treasure, where we see opportunity is jumping on that and going all in on that, right?
And then to top it all off, one more thing is that in order for you to develop a reputation that says you will do what you say you would, and then making tough decisions when they mean a lot. So it's very easy to say, I'm hardworking, I'll do this, a big company, I will do this, I'll show up and I'll deliver. Now, it's one thing to put a PowerPoint out there and try to pitch that, but when you show up and you deliver day after day, that builds credibility. And once you build credibility among a set of people, that goes a long way, whether they are bankers, because bankers want to lend money, right? It's not like they want to sit on it. So they want to lend money. So once you get a momentum going and appreciation of each other's business, it helps. Then they want to work with you. Same thing with whether it's AT&T or whether it's ExxonMobil. They are looking for good partners to work with. And I think that we focused on it. And last thing you mentioned baseball analogy by saying home runs early on, right? So I focused a lot more on singles and doubles for the longest time, and didn't go for home runs until the bases were truly loaded. How's that? So.
Well said, perfectly said. Next question I have is, still on this growth trajectory, growth phase of your business. For Afshi, start with you. For your oil products distribution company with your family, what marketing techniques did you guys use, and what really worked well for you guys in being in this commodity business?
So I'll say Oil Products is a company that actually wholesales gas and diesel to retail stations. A lot of those folks who are in that space are South Asians, and a lot of them are from our community. So there really wasn't, a lot of the marketing, there really wasn't any direct marketing. It was very organic type of marketing. Mm-hmm. And honestly, a lot of the customer base that we got was through like the Jamati Say event service that we do, or that my dad's done. And people knew us from the service. And then as they worked with us, the transparency that we offered them versus other people in our space, we were very open. If they said they wanted to see their bill, how they arrived at, and what we made, we were transparent. We would show them, like everything that they wanted to know, their contracts. A lot of people in our space actually don't do that. So for a lot of the customers, that was super refreshing. So that actually made us stand out. And it's like how Fareed said, it's like, if you say you're going to do something, then you better be ready to do it as well. So that's something, we made it easy for our customers to get into business with us. And we also made it easy for our customers to get out of business with us, like when their contracts ended, which isn't the norm, or at least was not the norm in this space, like when I first entered it. And it still doesn't seem to be the norm. So with oil products, like given like the customer base that we targeted, there wasn't really any direct marketing. Now on the other side, like the other business that we ended up buying, which is in El Campo, also on the fuel side, that one, even though we were wholesaling to retail gas stations, we actually I changed the focus over there. So not only were we doing gas stations, but we were also doing commercial. And very recently, like we've added on farm accounts. So that required marketing, because now we were marketing outside of our space. And for that, it was the traditional marketing of having a website, or being on all these social media platforms, looking at because we're in rural El Campo, there's a lot of ways of reaching out to like the community there, like through their local channels. So that was important in that marketplace. So again, based on where you're marketing, who you're marketing to, which city you're in, all of that sort of plays a role.
Gotcha. Fareed, over to you, talking about marketing, right? Being in a retail setting back in the early 2000s, and maybe even a few years ago, there was a big movement around AdWords and Facebook marketing and SEO and placement of your site and all that kind of stuff, right? So talk to me about what marketing you guys use in your early stages, in your growth stages, and how you've kind of evolved that today.
So go back to the cracker example, right?
Mhm.
Working with big companies, we were fortunate enough to outsource our marketing to AT&T. They not only did it, they paid for it. So we were fortunate enough to ride AT&T's coattails. I mean, when was the last time you turned a TV on for a major program or a game? You will see wireless guys advertising from T-Mobile, Verizon I mean, everybody's in TV all the time. So we didn't really need to advertise. We focused more on our, what you would call Google rankings, our reputation online. We focused on that. We focused on picking convenient locations that worked for folks that were in major thoroughways with good co-tenants. So we focused on that. So that's kind of where most of our marketing effort went, on reputation management on one side and on good real estate on the other side. So it was balancing of that. We did not, and even today, for the most part, we don't do any direct marketing ourselves because there's no need for it.
So Ali, it also depends on the kind of business you're in and if it requires direct marketing or not, you know?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Next question I have for you guys is, this is one of my favorite questions. You know, at what point did you realize that you're doing everything under the sun, right? You're doing technology, you're doing marketing, you're doing finance, you're doing sales, you're doing everything as a solo entrepreneur and helping your business grow. So at what point did you realize that you needed to transition from an individual contributor to a leader that inspires others? And then how did you get that buy-in? So start with, actually, we'll start with you.
Sure. So again, for me, that was more organic. Again, being in small business, not having done it before, it was twofold. Like, one was where I got tired and I was like, I can't do all this and I needed a break. And the second thing was, well, the business is making money now, like to hire people, good people, and to be able to, start bringing on people like who can take on some of the roles that you're already doing, right? So that's how it happened, at least for me. And as soon as that happened, and as you brought in more people, and I realized I had more, time on my plate to do other things and actually grow the business. So it was like a click. It was like a mental switch, like that turn. I was like, oh, so it wasn't something for me that was learned. It was something that when it happened, it was like, okay, this is great. So this is what I need to do. So in the other offices or the other businesses, as I set it up, I made sure that we hire people. So everything I was doing, I've transitioned over. So now I've got a lot of time on my plate to do other things or look into new ideas and develop those ideas as well.
Gotcha. Let me ask you a follow-up question on that. Did you find it difficult to, being so intertwined in your day-to-day processes in this growth phase, did you find it hard to delegate at some point, to give it up? You know what, I need to step away from this. And how did you do that?
Oh, very difficult. And honestly, and even though I've transitioned so much over already, I don't know if I'm really completely there to where I've exited like a lot of the decision making, but I don't know if I'm completely there because I am very hands-on. So it's been a very difficult transition for me. But I think what made the transition easy was actually the team. It's the people that you bring on board, and the fact that, they're stepping up and because they're stepping up, it gives you the confidence to not take a step back as well.
Great points. Great points. Fareed, over to you. How did you transition from an individual contributor to a person that needs to lead by example and get your team to buy in to help you really grow from 1 to 2,400?
I think, like she said, for me also, it was organic. There was no like a mile marker that, hey, you reach this, now do that, right? So there is no what I call a business plan that we were following and things like that. We grew more opportunistically. We grew more when things were aligned, when opportunities fell on our lap. So I think our business, because it was remote from day one, because we were spread out, we were fortunate enough, I believe, to recruit good, as I said earlier, good, smart, hardworking folks that wanted to work, that wanted to grow. And that helped us. Plus, we brought in some, what I would call really cool technology early on to help manage the business. And that kind of became our secret sauce. And then bringing in the right people, taking chance, making mistakes. It was a process. It's not like I said, okay, I need a CFO now. Let me hire a recruiter who's going to get me a CFO. Yeah, now I need a chief real estate lead. Let me go do that. No. Most folks that today run Prime I have a direct connection that goes back many, many years before that. And I think that has kind of helped build a team that executes this retail grind day in and day out. It's not easy. I mean, nothing is easy, but certain things are harder than others, right? So you know that. It's one thing to scale a software business from Austin like you are, and it's other to grow a business from Miami to Alaska and making sure stores open, customers show up, employees show up, and deposits are made, payroll is paid, rent is paid, utilities is paid. It's a process. And then do it again tomorrow and the day after. So without creating processes and folks that really care and want to do it, there's no way I could have more than 10 locations if I were doing it myself. No way.
Agreed.
Plus, I would have no quality of life, right? Don't forget that.
Which is a big part of it, which is I'm going to get to next.
Sure.
So why didn't you just get in the software business then? Save yourself the trouble.
Because I'll tell you right now, because remember I said dumb luck, if I had run into a software company, I would just do that. Maybe next one, maybe my next gig is software.
That's right. You never stop improving and learning and growing. I want to ask another question now, kind of leading into that, right? You're kind of inspiring others to be leaders and building that trust into others and allowing them to run things for you. Why is company culture so important, and how did you establish it? Yeah. Staying with you, Fareed.
So I'll answer it in a couple of examples, but also it's what I call it's more art than science. Okay. Again, I'm a believer. It's more about how slowly over time you create a culture. So one of the key things that at Prime we have a culture of accountability. Absolutely. We need a sense of urgency, accountability. If you don't have that, no matter how smart you are, chances of you being happy and successful in Prime are low. We need people who are hardworking, hyper-connected, and have a sense of urgency. One cliche that I'll say, I walk around telling people, run it like you own it. Run it like you own it. So basically, when somebody comes to me with a lot of times I do this, I'm going to say 2-3 times a week. When I see something and somebody asks me, I say, well, what would you do? And then don't answer it, then do that. Run it like you own it. So that type of mentality, how does that trickle down to thousands of employees who you will never meet? It's the challenge. And that is why I said it's art, not science. I am telling you, we've got people that care. They bleed blue, like I say for Prime, bleed blue, and those who just simply don't care. So we have extreme, what I call diversity on people we have, right? We have high turnover. We have what you would call folks that have true conviction, and people are totally apathy. They don't care. So all of that stuff, it's how it is. Some of the things that I think I have done that helped me a lot to create a culture of accountability. And I'll give you a couple of real life examples. So for example, I never ever used my business in the early days or even today as my personal piggy bank. I never did that. I never expensed anything. I never expensed my car. I never took quote unquote travel expenses. None of that stuff. Yeah, I bought an airline ticket on it, but it's not like I submitted receipts and collected money because it was a piggy bank. I never did that. So when I don't do that, then nobody else is likely to do that.
Hmm.
So lead by example. That's my way of saying. So if you don't do something, likelihood of somebody else is not going to do anything. In the early days of Prime, we used to work 6 days, 5.5 days a week. I would show up every Saturday. Even though I didn't have anything much to do, but I would show up because it mattered. I never took in holidays, Christmas time, we were always there. And and during COVID, this COVID thing that we just went through, I would basically walk around telling the leadership team in the back, if the stores are open, if they're there, why aren't we here? Simple things like that. Nothing high tech, nothing fancy, nothing from MBA school, just common sense. And those are the things that I think has helped build a culture that for the most part is a culture that likes to win, but also a culture that there's a joke at Prime. If you came in and if you ask somebody WWFD, what does that mean? WWFD. Most people in the back office would say, what would Fareed do? That's a joke. It has become a joke over there. But it started as what I call, the value system, right? Like, what would Fareed do? I mean, we are not fancy. Nothing we do is fancy. And we run a humble, modest business in a very, very, very competitive commodity business. I'm in as much of a commodity business as Afshin is.
Mhm.
So, details matter, accountability matters. So hope that answers your question.
That was a perfect answer. Lead by example. And what I got out of it was really empower others, right? To build that sense of culture and what would Fareed do?
Yeah. I mean, that's a joke, but it has meaning.
It makes complete sense. One last question on this kind of growth phase is to Afshi, to you. You're always working hard. You're putting all the hours in. It's hard to pull away sometimes. So how do you find that work-life balance and any habits that worked well for you? Like, I woke up in the morning, did X, Y, and Z to start my day, helped me clear my mind, or anything that nature that really helped you find that balance. And for those also on the call that are kind of in a similar state, whether they're in, working 9 to 5 jobs or working as entrepreneurs, anything that worked for you.
I'm probably the wrong person to ask this question to, but I'll try answering it. So for me, it's always been a challenge because I'm a bit of a workaholic, whether it is in my work, like in the work environment, whether it's in Jamaati service, whether it's in my own personal life, mainly because that's just my personality. I'm always a go-go type of person. COVID's really been a blessing because it has slowed me down a little bit, and it's given me better perspective. But I'm always that person who's always finding something, like to do to fill that gap in my disposable time, whether it is Jamaati Seva, whether it is organizing meetups with my son's friends or my nieces and their friends, or, whether it's being on a political campaign, like helping out there. So I will say that it also, like COVID also gave me perspective of how much I leaned on my husband, that he picks up a lot of slack of mine at home. And it made me realize what a great guy I've married, that he allows me to run around like a chicken with my head cut off without pointing it out to me, But yeah, he's allowed me to run at the pace that I set for myself. And with COVID, now I've taken a step back and I'm like, gosh, I can't believe I did all that, and I still was able to do what I was able to do for my kid and my family. And all credit really, again, to my husband. So I'm not the best person to say that I had the best work-life balance. But with COVID, I'm definitely trying to attempt to do more.
Gotcha.
Honest answer.
Oh, good one, Afshin, good one.
I know, I have to put
some brownie points.
I have to put a plug in for the husband,
I know, I'm good. I'm good
I mean,
with that.
this hour away is like an hour away from my family and him too. So
yeah, look, I'll make it quick in the interest of time. For me, work-life balance, it's not been a challenge because for me, they're one of the same. I don't think of work as like I'm doing something like other than home. So it's all the same. It's always been the same. My family, that's how they've grown up. So yeah, I mean, that's what it is. So I don't think of work as work in a traditional sense. It sounds cliche, but I really mean it.
So Ali, this is coming from two workaholics that you're getting.
Yeah, that's true. And I take pride in it. I take pride in it.
Likewise, yeah.
You have to have passion in everything you do, right? So,
Yeah.
Yeah, you do.
all right. So switching gears real quick. So now you're at the stage of, you both have established yourselves, right? In your respective domains. You could take all the knowledge and distill it down and keep it within yourselves, which I don't recommend, or come on these kinds of calls and go to panels and give back to the community to really spread that knowledge, right? So I have a couple of questions geared toward that. So starting off with you, Avshi, as an entrepreneur, you never stop improving and generating new ideas. You already alluded to this. But I want to go back into the past couple of years, which has been, a challenging period for all of us. How did you handle the pandemic, and what impact did it have on your business, and how did you kind of counteract that, right? How did you maneuver that?
Sure. So I'll say like pre-pandemic, we were already positioning ourselves, knowing with the advent in the future of being electric vehicles at some point,
Mhm.
and I thought it would be in my time, would be 100% transition, but I think it's probably going to be another few more generations, in my opinion. But
Mhm.
having sort of seen that coming when I first started out in this business, we've actually diversified. So yes, the pandemic definitely hurt our volumes. People were traveling less, people were working from home. But the good thing is in the last couple of years, sort of having that foresight, I'd already pivoted this part of the business, our El Campo part of the business, away from just being in retail to actually servicing commercial and farmers, majority being farmers, and also transitioning into just out of gas and diesel into oil and lubes. So in 2006, we ended up inheriting, for lack of a better word, when we bought a business, we also ended up with this 8-acre property that we just didn't know what to do with, to be honest. So when our lease expired, because we were in a rental facility there, we moved over to our own facility. We had underground tanks, and every day I would come into El Campo, get into my office, and I'd look at this big vast land. I'm like, what am I doing? Like, we've got to be able to put this into service, Again, it was something, I was like, there's got to be more we can do. So just decided to put some of those tanks into operation. We already had them, the infrastructure was there. I wasn't putting any more money into it. And it started picking up when it picked up. And I was like, how do I get into the oil and lube side? Totally different business. Okay. But still kind of attached to this. But I'd never done it before. So brought in some people and paid them, and they didn't perform. And I was like, if they've done it in their prior life, I can do it as well, So just kept chugging at it. And so when the pandemic hit, we were already positioned to where that part of the business actually took off, and that with the fact that, our logistics side of the business, which was transportation, was also picking up, and COVID became a perfect opportunity for us to add on more trucks, because now, as we know, that logistics is is so high in demand with people sitting at home and ordering from home from Amazons of the world, that logistics is it's such a pressing demand on that. So I think COVID happened, and yes, we were positioned ahead of time, luckily, just having foresight. But I think COVID helped us grow on that side.
Excellent. So diversifying and finding opportunity and new things where others may not see, right?
Yeah,
So,
and I think one of the things is you can't get very comfortable with where you're at. I mean, these are cash flowing businesses. Everything that we make here, then we take and we invest into other businesses, right? Or other investments. So, I mean, we've never been the type who are comfortable with what we're doing. We're always looking for ways to sort of get more creative, grow that side of the business, diversify out. And I think that's what put at least us in a position of taking advantage of the pandemic.
awesome. Fareed, over to you. Question I have is, with the retail communication business, there's obviously a lot of competition, right? With new brands and existing brands, established brands. How do you differentiate yourself now?
So it's a difficult question to answer, because there are a lot of things we do. And most important for us is to execute at the store level, at the unit level, with new digital tools we have, which is buy online, pick up at the store, or start at store and finish at home. Omni-channel, that has helped us improve our customer service. and just staffing and training the right people at the stores so that you would go back. Remember, a lot of folks today, you can just imagine that most people, on this call, I'm going to assume, think that most people buy phones online, but they don't. Only very small percentage of people buy phones online because people are just not comfortable. Because for a lot of people, this has become their lifeline. They don't want to be without their lifeline. So they go to a store and it's a very consultative sale process. It's not an easy sale process. And for us to execute at the store level day in and day out so that people keep coming. And that's how we win day in and day out.
Gotcha. Focus on operational excellence. That's
Yep.
key.
Yep.
One last question before we open up to Q&A. What resources do you suggest for new leaders? Any books, podcasts, apps, things that you've done, you used in the past that really helped you think differently or outside the box or help you mature and grow? Any resources you guys have for any aspiring for our audience here? I'll start with you, Akshi.
Sure. I'm super old school. I'm 44 years old, but I probably haven't adapted or adopted technology as well as I should. I like reading a lot. I have transitioned to reading on my Kindle, but I do always miss the feel of the paperback and the hardcover. Another resource that I would say is really talking to people, people who you wish to emulate, pick their brain, get their feedback on your ideas, let them poke holes in your business plans, be transparent. The other thing I would say is you probably heard this phrase that you're the average of the 5 people that you spend the most time with, right? This is true, really true for everyone, for the 5 people you spend time with, them and their networks and your networks. So look around you and see who are those 5 people that you're spending time with. And you really ideally want to be spending time with people who are better than you so that it raises your average. I'm a people person, so I enjoy people over podcasts and apps. Again, that's me being old school.
Good question. Fareed, over to you.
Yeah, so on your book question, I think there is a book that I read years ago. It's by Jim Collins called Good to Great. I think it's a great book that you can download or buy. It is a simple book that talks to you and teaches you how to kind of focus on what really matters. So that's one of my favorite books that I believe that I have benefited from. And I've taken cues that I've implemented in my professional lives, and I can say that it has mattered. As far as what else do, I like most people. I'm connected. I talk to people. I got good networks of people, very good. And I have what I call social networks. I have business networks. One thing I don't do is that you're not going to find me on Facebook, that's for sure. Or at least, unless you find the fake account that Afshi created for me, you're not going to find me on Facebook. I try to stay away from social media type of things, but I focus more on reading things that interest me and excite me, and talking to people and meeting people, like Afshi said. That's been my go-to method. So
Awesome.
And I'll add on to what Fareed said. Social media is a time suck to all the people, young folks, my age folks, my peers. It's a suck. It's one of those that, you have to understand that all that glitters is really only glitter on there. It's really not gold. And there's a reason. Fareed's on social media. You see the success, but it's a time suck. So, and people, I think, end up comparing a lot of how successful people are in business or in their personal lives and compare it. And it's not a fair comparison. You have to give yourself grace, because that's not where you use that comparison.
Absolutely. 100% agree with you guys. All right. So what we'll do now is, again, if you guys in the audience have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. We'll spend a few minutes with Fareed and Afshi having kind of open round around what questions you guys have. So again, I'll go through in the order that they're received in. If they're repetitive, we'll skip them. If we already answered them, we'll skip them. And then Fareed, Afshi, what I ask of you is if you guys want to just, raise your hand and say, hey, I got this one, feel free to jump in. Cool?
Sure.
All right, so let me scroll up here. All right, so we have a question from Zohib. Yali Madad, as an undergraduate student who is considering a path in social entrepreneurship and is concerned about the practicality of doing so, is there any advice you can give about pursuing a career in entrepreneurship compared to a more traditional career?
Who do you like to go?
Afshi, do you want to answer that one?
Sure. I'm assuming from social entrepreneurship, they mean something where, I don't know if it's a nonprofit or not, but I'm assuming it's for profit. Whenever you are looking to get into social entrepreneurship and trying to make things around you better, just understand that a lot of times from my perspective, what I've seen people who get into it, they may not make, I guess, like initially when they start out, like they may not make like the same amount of money that they're expecting to make in a traditional business. But I would say that it's when you get into the social entrepreneurship, understand that because you're in this field of trying to make things around you better, that there is also going to be a magnifying glass on you as you grow and get to that growth level of what your processes may be, the kind of raw materials that you may be bringing in, like what kind of products you're putting out. So I would say it's a great initiative, but I would just say just be more mindful of your processes and make sure that you're able to sort of talk through in all aspects of your business of how that's helping the environment or the social environment itself.
Hopefully, Zohib, we answered that question for you. Next question we have is, I think we've kind of answered this already, but I'll just say it out loud. When you're in the comfort zone, how did you guys push yourself out of it? And I think it goes back to our question of motivation and just pushing through and finding passion in what we do, right? So hopefully, Anila, you asked this question, so hopefully we answered that early on. I think we did. I have a question from Sean. I think Fareed, this is for you. When a location begins to dwindle in profits and begins to slowly decline, what are the driving factors which determine if you need to cut it off or continue to be patient and try to develop more?
All right, so think of it like this: when you have, I'm going to assume, multiple locations and how you operate, think of yourself as a gardener that has to constantly prune a tree in your garden. So you can never sit still and say, okay, now I got this location humming and it'll just be good forever or for foreseeable future. I think when you run call it a group of stores or locations or outlets, you are always pruning. You're always trying to make your portfolio better, more efficient, delivers better. So it's a journey. You never get there. You're always there pruning, and there are many reasons for it. I mean, an area changes, the shopping habits change, technology has an impact, construction, who knows what happens, and people's habits change. So there are times when we move literally from a location to a B location that's 100 yards away, and we see a difference in it. And last but not least, dollars and cents. A new development sometimes makes sense, and you have incentives to move. So all of those things play a role. But I always think of myself as a gardener that is always pruning, constantly pruning its garden.
Well said. I have two questions from Ali Chanara. So first question is, when trying to grow your business to multiple locations, what 3 or most important steps should one plan out and have in place before considering multiple locations? So that's part one. Fareed, you can answer that.
Okay. So the first thing that I learned years ago is a rule, golden rule. There is no deal you gotta have. You have to remind yourself. I know it sounds, again, cliche, but it's really, really important that there is no deal you gotta have. If you convince yourself of that, then you will hardly ever make a mistake that you'll say, man, I shouldn't have done that. So that's rule number one that I would always focus on it. And then plus, then I look at it, is it a good tuck in? Does it fit into your district or your market? Does it make sense? Open it And please don't be emotional about it. I know it sounds hard. You have to distance yourself in a way so decision-making is very objective. Don't fall in love, don't get deal fever, whatever you want to call it.
Well said. And his second question, I actually like this question a lot too. I'm curious, is what role do you play in the day-to-day aspects of your business at the present? Give us an example of what your day will look like tomorrow, if you can.
I can
Start with
do
me.
I can do that. So my role in the day-to-day business is really more now playing the role of an advisor. So the business is at that point where we have some great people who can make those decisions. So unless there's a decision that they may not be comfortable making, and generally it's part of, even if it's a decision that they may not be comfortable making, it's like how Fareed said, it's like when they ask you the question, you're asking them, well, what would you do? Like, like, what are you thinking? And then you sort of guide them in the right, like in the direction. Mostly they're already there, but they just need that comfort of knowing, hey, this is what you would also do, or is there something differently you would do? So that's the role that I play, is like, I'm really there as an advisor. I have an office there, I sit there, but I'm really almost obsolete, to be honest, in my own office. Unless there's an issue with the customer that they just can't resolve, or the customer only wants to speak to me, then yes, I will absolutely take that call. And for example, on Monday, I've got a meeting in, like, most of my meetings are now out of the office. So I've got a meeting out of the office for a project that we're invested in, to be able to see if we can do more or divest of what we've got. And following that, I've got a meeting in the office to meet with a customer who wanted to meet with me about some challenges he's having with his with his current gas station. So I'm happy to sort of meet and give them advice on that. And if there's something I can do, or if there's something that's needed, decision from my end, then that's when I pull in my team and I say, hey, this is what we're looking to do. What is your thought? So I don't really make those decisions in a silo. It's really made with the team itself, because they're the ones who are there day to day.
Fareed, going back to you, question from Shanif is, what hiring channels do you look to?
Okay, so think of it like this. It's recruiting, it's an ongoing process, right? It never ends. So we use, the Indeeds of the world, that services that are available. We use that. We focus heavily on what I call market level, store level recruiting, because that's the best one. We are using our networks, LinkedIn, the usual stuff. We have a recruiting team that's full-time, is out there recruiting folks using traditional digital tools plus personal tools and our personal networks. So we use all of it to fill this this what I call funnel that just never enough. So
Gotcha.
that's how we do it.
Very cool. Question for Fareed from Barkat Durrani. Where do you see the future of the cell phone retail in the coming years?
Only if I knew. So look, I can tell you in short to midterm, I think it's gonna continue to become business. I think it's gonna go on. Volumes are gonna be stagnant, I believe. Consolidation will happen, and right now all the carriers are kind of, it's like the airlines. Everybody has similar plans, similar networks, similar what I call deals out there. And I think it's a three-horse race. And the business, I think it's going to be here for foreseeable future. But it's going to be the players, I believe, the players are going to be fewer and larger. So think of it consolidating at the operator level.
Interesting.
Because it's easier for the carriers to manage, right?
Yeah, absolutely. A couple more questions. We'll pick a couple of these. I think we've answered a few of these. How do you keep people motivated and loyal to your organization? We talked about that. How do you determine the skill set of people you need to hire? I think it's really need-based, right? Kind of assessing some of these things here. And what's going to help you get to the next trajectory of your business? What advice can you give to build out your business infrastructure?
can you elaborate? What do you mean infrastructure? I mean, is it digital infrastructure, human capacity? I mean, what are we talking?
I think what they're referring to is, infrastructure in terms of real estate and just kind of overall, the corporate structure, so to speak, I think.
Well, I'll respond it this way. I think it's hard to make a general, I'll make an observation as to how we did it, okay? And then hopefully that'll give some ideas. So what we did over time, we focused on things that we needed but didn't have a resource in-house. So for example, being the business we're in, we knew folks around us were good with finance, good with ticking and tying things. So we didn't really need any help there. However, recruiting was a big help needed. HR was a big challenge. So we focused on those things first. Real estate and leasing, which is like I said, it's an art, less of a science. So we focused on that, brought in people who can help us do that. So I have always tried, I mean, like, for example, we have a bunch of lawyers that work at Prime because we have so many employees and so many leases, and there is always activity going on. So having those resources in-house helped. So I have always focused on what do we have to do all the time and who is better equipped to do it. And I'm not a fan of outsourcing everything.
Mhm.
So we don't outsource anything that we could do in-house, and we could do it better, both from a cost point of view, but also an execution point of view, because I believe in accountability. So we do a lot of things in-house that most people would never do. We do IT support in-house. We have our own health plan that we partially, what is called a partially funded health plan. We do things in-house. We do all of our HR in-house, recruiting in-house. Most of the stuff we do is all in-house. We don't outsource much because I believe in controlling the process. So hope that helps. Again, it's different for each business and each individual.
Absolutely. And obviously it didn't happen overnight, right? As you scale the business, you see opportunities to bring things back in-house or establish things in terms of infrastructure and grow that, right? I think one last question we have is going to kill, multiple birds, one stone here is, what advice would you give to your younger self or audience who are starting their leadership or entrepreneurship journey? Just quick takeaway, something that just really jumps out at you that, that's what I did. Or if I was to go back in time, and that's what I would focus on.
Well, I would say it's okay to make mistakes, make good friends, volunteer, and remember that life is a continuum of learning. And it's going to be ongoing. It doesn't matter how old you are.
All right. So on my side, I've drilled it down to like 3 specific things that I tell all the people that I meet, young people. I always tell them 3 things: stay humble, stay hungry, and stay scrappy. And there are reasons behind it. I said stay humble because with humility, you have the ability to listen to others. That someone else may have a better mousetrap. Someone else may have a better idea, better strategy than yours. And with humility, which is again, hard to do as you age and as you kind of become, hey, I've done it all, I've seen it all. What are you going to tell me that I don't know right now? That is something, it's a struggle for me also. But I think it has helped me saying, listen to others. That's humility. Stay hungry. That's intellectual hunger. I mean, folks like me who come from as an immigrant have a different mindset, but that doesn't apply to all of you who are kind of have had a very comfortable journey so far. How do you stay hungry? How do you become a better learner, how do you stay curious? So that's a challenge. And that's something that I think we all have to work at it. And last but not least, stay scrappy. I really believe staying scrappy means doing more with less. You do a lot more with a lot less. That's what kind of makes you quick, nimble, efficient. So you do much more than your competition, and that helps you thrive. So those are the three things that I very much believe and preach.
And Avshi, conversely, just kind of a follow-up on that.
Yeah, so I wanted to add on to what, sorry, did you have a question?
Go for it. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to add on to what Fareed said about humility. I think like one of the traits of a leader is that you have to know that how you got where you got and who helped you along the way. And I think sometimes like when you get to a certain position, you forget who, you forget the journey of how you got there and with whose help and support. So I think that humility piece is absolutely key in really all aspects of our life, whether it's personal, work, Jamaati, whatever it may be. And the other thing is, as a leader, you have to know that you're not good at everything. Okay, there's people out there who are smarter than you and who will know more than you. Always be open to be reaching out and saying, I don't know this. Can I learn from you? And I think that's a single trait that I see missing from a lot of people, or that people forget as they get to where they, eventually are.
Excellent way to recap that one. That was close to what I was going to ask you anyways, to follow up. Well, anyways, in the interest of time, I want to again thank you guys so much for joining. Fareed, Avshi, the audience, taking time out of your busy Sunday to join us and learn. What I want to do is just have some closing remarks and kind of leave you with some contact information with IPN and what we're trying to accomplish, right? So we're here to help you connect with each other. This is the intention behind these kinds of forums, to help you learn and have a sense of community within our Smiley cultures, right? And to help you in your career, in your professional development as well. And also in the entrepreneurial endeavors that you may have. So feel free to reach out to IPN with any questions, requests, or ideas at the above mentioned addresses here. So go follow us on Facebook. We have LinkedIn, we have Instagram, or you could just reach out to us via email if you have any questions or any other additional questions that we didn't get to answer today. In the interest of time, feel free to send them over to us and we'll have them routed over to Fareed and Avshi and have them answered for you guys. With that said, thank you guys so much and Yali Madad, and enjoy the rest of your Sunday.
Thank you. Hi, Chairman. How's it going? We lost Fareed. Oh.
We still have some attendees dropping off, so.